Hey, welcome once again to another edition of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Welcome once again. As today we've got a handful of things to go over, starting with the Humboldt Broncos and their home opener. So if you haven't seen it yet, watch the documentary on TSN called Two Roads to Humboldt. Very great documentary that came out yesterday as a TSN special. It's on their main webpage at tsn.ca. Matthew, what are your thoughts about Humboldt before we get into some other stuff?
Yeah, so it's going to be a pretty emotional night. I think as we're recording it's about 25 minutes before puck drop. There's two guys that were in the bus crash that are on this roster tonight, and just everything it's that whole crash and everything is very emotional, especially like a guy my age. Just seeing so many young guys pass away. It's really tough. But yeah, I think as I posted, the sticks are out for the boys. That was a great movement, and we're always Humboldt strong. And I'll be watching the game tonight, and thinking about all those guys. There's still a couple guys still in the hospital, recovering. But yeah, it's gonna be super emotional.
What a interesting way to start the season as they play, like you said, their home opener in just over 25 minutes against the Nipawin Hawks, who they were playing against in that playoff series last year. They decided not to go with a captain this year, as the captain, unfortunately, was one of the guys that passed away in the bus crash. I think that was a pretty cool move on their part. They got 3 assistant captains, like you said, 2 guys returning. They were going to have a lot of guys not coming back anyways, because a lot of guys were overage now. But still, definitely a tough way to go. I know one of the players trained super hard since the accident because he feels the responsibility to represent that team from last year this year and to connect with that community and those fans as they continue to heal from that absolute tragedy last year. So any final words on that before we move on to our next topic?
I think just huge props to TSN to getting the game broadcasted. I know Chris Cuthbert and Ray Ferraro will be doing the play-by-play in color. And even they did an hour pregame going over some of the stories with some of the guys. I haven't had the chance to watch any of it yet, but I know tomorrow we'll have the follow-up on that.
Well, let's get into some breaking news that just happened moments ago. The NHL has given another lengthy suspension. Why don't you bring us up to date on all those details?
Yeah, so the NHL has suspended Nashville Predator forward Austin Watson 27 games for a domestic assault charge that he was charged with back in July. Very, very big suspension. This is really good by the NHL. That I'm glad they acted on this. And I know, like, in the past, there have been, like, the Semyon Varlamov and Slava Voinov situations where things haven't been as clear, except for Voinov, who they booted out of the league. Yeah. And the Varlamov stuff sort of disappeared a little bit. I forget how that ended. But yeah, this is a strong message by the NHL that they won't deal with this. The suspension, in my belief, could have been even longer if they wanted to. But yeah, 27 games. To follow up on that Nate Schmidt suspension, that was 20 games. I really like the suspension and having a no-nonsense policy for it.
Yeah, I absolutely like the idea that, if you're gonna mess around with the law outside of the game, that they're gonna heavily suspend you during the game, and it's gonna affect his paycheck a lot too, I'm sure. I don't know if you've broken down those numbers yet because it just literally happened, but I like it. It shows, that the NHL is really, they've cleaned up their game. There is not a lot of stuff like other sports. And when it does happen, they really throw the book at players. So that's one of the things I really like. So.
Yeah. So he's making $1.1 million this year. So with the 27 games, it should be around $350K that he'll lose. So with a guy that doesn't make that much money to begin with, that's going to be a huge loss in his paycheck.
That is a lot of money for us regular folk. That's for sure. Another thing that came down yesterday is head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, John Tortorella, signed a 2-year extension.
Yeah. So the Columbus Blue Jackets gave Tortorella a 2-year extension. He's had a really good record over the first 2 years that he was with Columbus, going 129 wins, 87 losses, and 23 shootout losses. And he got the Columbus Blue Jackets to the playoffs in each of his 2 years. I think this has been a really good resurgence for Tortorella since leaving Vancouver and then taking a little bit of a break and then coming back with Columbus. And he's been really good presence behind the bench. He hasn't had all those big blow-ups or anything with the media. Every once in a while, you'll get like one of those Tortorella snippets in post-game interviews, but that's Tortorella in general. But I think he's really calmed down. Just his general play in the background and his coaching style.
Well, this being the first season that he's going into without getting paid by the Vancouver Canucks, I like it. I like it a lot. I think he's done a lot for that Blue Jackets organization. I learned something today that he's actually the most winningest coach of all time in the Blue Jackets history, which goes to show you how bad some of their teams have been or how many coaches they've gone through. Because you look at a team like Nashville, who's only ever had 2 head coaches in their entire franchise history. So that's pretty incredible, but he's doing the right things. I think Columbus, we would probably know a whole lot more about this team if they weren't in that crazy Metropolitan Division. If you haven't heard us talk about the Metropolitan Division before, make sure you watch some of our past episodes of team previews from the Metropolitan Division, as there's easily 5-6 really good hockey clubs in that division. It's a tough division to get through in the playoffs. You have to go through Pittsburgh or Washington or the Rangers when they were hot. It's a tough division. And Columbus, even when they finish well in the regular season, has to go through Pittsburgh or Washington every single season. So I like it, though. I think Tortorella's got that team going in the right direction, and they're definitely going to be another team to contend with this year. Moving on, you're going to bring us up to date now with some of the recent PTO tryouts that are coming up with some players.
Yeah. So some professional tryouts have been given out the past couple days. Excuse me. Lucas Spiza with the New York Islanders joins Dennis Seidenberg on their professional tryout sheet. Spiza, I think, has a good chance of making the Islanders just because their bottom 6 isn't the greatest. And Seidenberg, I know he's played with the Islanders the past couple of years. He's getting up there in age, but I don't think he'll make it. But Spiza could get a contract. The Boston Bruins gave Lee Stempniak and Daniel Winnick both professional tryouts. Yesterday, the Boston freeing up that cap space, moving down McQuaid, could lead to a possibility of signing one or both of these guys. Stempniak with more offensive upside. Stempniak dealt with a lot of concussion problems last year, and it wasn't until the second half of the season that he finally joined Carolina in the season, and he struggled a lot. But I think having the summer off and getting a full training, I think he could get back to where he could get to like 40 points possibly. And Winnick is a good veteran checker. Alex Chason was given a tryout by the Edmonton Oilers, and he joined Scotty Upshall and Jason Garrison there with veterans looking to make the team. Chason could try to push guys like Pontus Ahlberg, Zach Cassian, Jesse Pugliarvi, as these young guys have had their ups and downs in the NHL, and Chason just winning the Stanley Cup with Washington last year. Actually won a job with Washington as he joined them on a tryout last season, and had a decent year. I think he could be a little bit better offensively, but we'll see how that happens. And in former Vancouver Canuck news, Jussi Jokinen signed a tryout with the Detroit Red Wings. I think, especially in Vancouver, offensively, he actually had really good numbers. And I actually would have liked Vancouver to have signed him maybe to a one-year deal other than going after a guy like Tim Schaller, because he showed some chemistry and he would have been on a really cheap deal instead of having to give out like $3 million to Antoine Roussel or something like that. But I sure hope he makes the team. He's under 50. He's under 50 games away from getting to 1,000 games in the NHL, and I'd like to see him get there. And the last tryout today, Calgary gave Logan Shaw professional tryout. He split the season between Anaheim and Montreal, I believe, last year. More of a fourth line player, but I think he'll just be there for the camp because Calgary has a lot of forward depth in their system.
Well, Jussi Jokinen, of course, doesn't have the same type of sandpaper that Antoine Roussel brings to the Canucks lineup, and I know that's why the Canucks signed him. But yeah, that's starting tomorrow. A lot of training camps open up, including the Vancouver Canucks up in Whistler. I know Calgary and Boston are in China for a couple of preseason games on Sunday, which is their first game's on Sunday, but it's actually Saturday here when they play. And I know those two teams are already over there. I believe they play on Wednesday their time, Tuesday our time as well. So you'll see a Calgary versus Edmonton game on Sunday, which will probably not really be a lot of the Calgary Flames. So a lot of fans might remember Vancouver doing that last year. I think Brock Besser was only the only real Canuck on the team that played the Alberta teams, while most of the main veterans were in China playing the Los Angeles Kings. So excited that hockey season's right around the corner. The first snowfall in Canada happened last night. So hockey season's right here. And I don't really feel sorry for people in Grand Prairie, but they got snow last night. And yeah, I mean, to me, when you see snow, it's time for hockey. I know your seasons have already started. My season's starting this weekend. I'm excited for it. And I know everybody's itching to play. But I just want to wrap up with saying again, thanks for listening to our episode. Make sure you like and subscribe, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. So it's B&B Hockey Talk. Make sure to check out that Humboldt Bronco documentary, Two Roads Lead to Humboldt, on TSN. And if you've got TSN, they're less than 15 minutes away from showing the live action of Humboldt Broncos opener. And I'm sure there's lots of pre-game festivities happening in remembrance of the boys. Remember, leave your stick out for the boys. Have a safe day, everyone. And we'll see you all tomorrow on our next episode.